GT Cup Championship that all commenced back on March 21st to the 23rd of the Shanghai International Circuit as part of the Formula One Chinese Grand Prix weekend. We now arrive here at Pingtan Lake International City Circuit ahead of qualifying to open up this weekend here in this series ahead of its second round here this season. It's going to be a special one, that's for sure. We're still 2 rounds to bring you after this one, heading to Beijing, and then later the Crater Bay Arena GT Cup that will take place during the Macau weekend during the course of November 13th to the 16th. But it's a long way to go until then, and between now and then we will be waiting for the drivers to accrue their points. 32 degrees in terms of temperature is stabilised across the weekend, with track temperature at 50 degrees as well. Humidity standing at 65%, with winds now starting to pick up. And I'm sure we'll see that play a vital factor through the course of qualifying as they look to make their way around this very tenacious circuit. We are here at the Pingtan Lake International City Circuit here with 14 corners, 2.9 kilometres in length as well, with a very technical first sector that really opens up coming through turn 1 in towards turn 2, where you then swing your way through the segments. As you can see from the calendar taking you through the year, we kicked off back in March during the Grand Prix weekend at Shanghai, and that is of course the Chinese Grand Prix circuit of Shanghai. Pingtan Lake International City Circuit is where we now land here in June on the 28th to the 29th, and we next head to the Beijing Street Circuit on October 17th to the 19th, with the Greater Bay Area Macau weekend on November 13th to the 16th, the grand finale in what will be, I'm sure, a really phenomenal first season, an inaugural season for the SRO GT Cup Series. Here we now take a look at some of the runners taken to the circuit here this weekend for the first time. It's Han Liqiao, who has been very fast through the course of, well, free practice that we've had already so far, has shown some really steady speed. Friday practice, he was second fastest for the Toyota Gazoo Racing China team, racing with the Toyota GR Supra GT4 Evo 2. They managed to muscle in a 1:22.303. There was just over 2.5 tenths off from Lu Jianji, who was the eventual fastest man out on track. The Lotus now makes its way out onto the circuit for Huang Qiushen, who now looks to get set ready for the start of quali. It looks like cars have really packed up the pit lane entering onto the circuit, so a little bit of confusion, I think, as the lights are still red at the moment. So the cars can't quite yet leave, as the fast lane isn't quite yet open just yet. But we will, of course, be seeing the drivers very shortly head out onto the circuit. Of course, as the drivers do head out, we are, of course, set on the coastal province between Shanghai and Hong Kong. And as the drivers will navigate their way around this track, they are treated to panoramic views of the azure waters of the East China Sea. We have got 11 drivers returning after the first round at Shanghai, incidentally, during that Formula One Chinese Grand Prix weekend for the SRO GT Cup's inaugural round, with 10 new drivers also coming in to join the series for rounds 2 and 3, races 2 and 3 here at Pingtan. And of course, this circuit frequented on the calendars of the China GT Endurance, and also the F4 Chinese Championships as well, that many of these drivers would have taken part in through the course of time. Of course, many of them coming in from the realms of TCR China, as well as the China GT Championships, the China Endurance, as well as contesting at the Macau Grand Prix GT segment over the years as well. Still a very busy pit lane, the 58 trying to make its way out onto the circuit as well. Of course, everyone's going to be fighting over track position. Sai Chang Ta for Level Motorsports in the number 58. They'll be making its way out onto the circuit very shortly. And we've got 2 classes to take us through the weekend as well. Remember, we do have active silver class. That is, of course, the highest class on order here. Obviously, they'll be looking to try and take the overall crowns as well. But we also have a very vibrant AM class that also includes not only runners that include the likes of, for example, Sai Chang Ta and also Wang Wai Hong, but the real headliner, really, as part of the AM class, is Moritz Berenberg, who managed to go back-to-back last time out at Shanghai, taking victories in race 1 and, of course, race 2, maximising his points total, essentially 50 points now against his name, and he leads the championship ahead of second place Cao Quikhorn, who is on 33. Of course, he's not here though, however, and neither is the third place driver of Yu Rao. So at the moment, it's Moritz Berenberg's to lose, but obviously with it being a very fragile start to the championship, the points can still be won and lost in these very early moments. The cars, they're making their way out onto the circuit to kick us off this weekend. And
And of course, we want to talk about some of the times we have witnessed. I did mention, of course, the Friday afternoon test that took place. Liu Jianzi was the fastest driver in the Mercedes-AMG GT4 for 300 plus par by 300 plus Racing with a 1:22.035, and that was just over 2.5 tenths quicker than Han Liqiao, who is second coming out of the Friday test. Wang Hao was obviously third fastest as well, but also for Toyota Gazoo Racing China. So that's 2 Toyotas in the top 3 with a 1:22.600 coming off the back of his lap. But Saturday's morning practice session announced the arrival of Daryl Young in his first start in this series as well, with a 1:21.788 ahead of second place Han Liqiao again, who's very consistent in that second place spot. But if we want to talk about, of course, Daryl Young, a Porsche Carrera Cup Asia champion back in 2006 and 2008, and also a Greater Bay Area GT Cup GT3 2023 winner, which could prove vital through the course of this season, as that will be the final stop on our calendar heading into Macau. He is also a 2015 GT Asia Series winner and a Bathurst 24-hour winner as well, back in 2011 and 2012 back-to-back. So could yet prove to be a very feisty competitor at the highest end of the order indeed. So keep your eyes peeled on Daryl Young, who went fastest in the morning session here on Saturday. Further back as well, third place was Zhu Lung as well, who managed to muscle in at 1:22.324. So not a bad visit on his part either, as now we watch the cars make their way around the circuit. We are now well and truly inside this qualifying session. And as you can see, Wang Hao on top of the timing tower so far, but we are still awaiting those first laps to come on in. So that timing tower is going to look largely very different, I think, come the end of the first runs that we're about to see. But just to show you the complexities around this circuit, very technical, as I mentioned. The first sector certainly offers plenty in the manner of overtaking, as we already see the lights flashing, this time from the 33 belonging to Han Liqiao, who was second fastest in both the test and free practice this morning. As they now head down towards turn 1 yet again, the first times now started to come into place. Han Liqiao, no surprises, towards the top ahead of Wang Hao so far, and that is a 1:21.988, which incidentally, if you want to talk about times, that is actually faster than what we saw in the test. Daryl Young's time in that practice session was, of course, a 1:21.788, so we're just a little ways off that, but already the early laps looking like that they're going to be following a similar trend of 1:21s, but I'm sure they'll be a lot faster, that's for sure. Practice is one thing, qualifying trim is another, but around this Pingtan circuit, which is in itself, as you might imagine, a street circuit, of course frequented by the domestic population that of course live around the area of Pingtan. We did have goats across the track as well through the course of Friday as well, so not just the wildlife that like to take part, as well as the drivers. They like to have their moment out on circuit. Hopefully not during the race this weekend, though. Very much like a groundhog situation that we have seen in Canadian Grand Prix, for example, as we now watch as the cars make their way through the circuit, coming out of turns 11, 12 and 13. But here at Pingtan, you really do have everything. With the concrete barriers being so close, there's very little room for mistakes here at this circuit. With turn 10 coming out to that technical first sector, as I mentioned, you've got a sequence of corners from turns 1 to turns 9 that offer so much complex wheel rotation and really careful balance as well. You really need to apply your braking in all the right moments. It really does provide opportunities, not just for overtaking, but also potentially drivers for making mistakes, as we now take a look as the drivers do get set for their laps. Turn 10, though, is an in-swinger, as I said, coming through the left. There is Daryl Young, of course, the driver that was fastest in practice first thing this morning, managing to muscle in a very strong lap time of a 1:21.788. Already, though, we've dwarfed it, because currently our P1 sitter Han Liqiao has registered a 1:21.211. So that is the fastest time we've seen all weekend so far here in Pingtan. So well done him in the 33. That's the number 11 we're seeing of Can Che-Wei, who is now coming through the course at the moment, driving the Ginetta G55 GT4, and is a Greater Bay Area GT Cup winner, and the reigning one, in fact, from last year as well. So that will, of course, serve him well, and it's going to be fascinating to see both him and Daryl Young contesting. Of course, Daryl Young winning it back in 2023. So we have both our recent winners here on track here at Pingtan. So let's hope that they can give us a show heading through the course of qualifying. Moritz Berenberg currently sat in third as well, the 927, of course, top of the AM Classification Championship at the moment after taking a clean sweep of victories through the course of the Shanghai weekend at the Chinese Grand Prix circuit. And you'll be hoping to take that fully forward as well in the 927 Max Moore W&S Motorsport car. Of course, embracing the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS Club Sport. And with the races we have remaining as we move through Pingtan and later Beijing and Macau as well, no doubt we'll be seeing, I think, improved results elsewhere. Of course, this is, the first time we're witnessing the SRO GT Cup in action. The inaugural round was, of course, just the last one, so it's only its first year, and of course it'll only be set to grow. Of course, limited to the to the most part anyway, the Chinese contingent of drivers. We also have drivers hailing from Hong Kong, Chinese Taipei as well. So multinational include in terms of the nation we're currently in at the moment. But of course we do have Moritz Berenberg, who is of course German, racing in this series, but races largely in the Asian country with experience at the China endurance level. Taking part in the Shanghai 8 Hours, finishing 4th there last year as well. Han Le Chao still the fastest driver. We're now in the 120s, folks. 120.781. That is the fastest time registered by Han Le Chao, ahead of Cao Zhu Lung at the moment, who's registered at 22.0. So that is a massive 1.2 seconds difference between our P1 sitter to P2 at the moment. Wang Hao down in 3rd place, 22 thousandths away from P2 in 3rd. We still have plenty of time, though, for drivers to improve on their laps, 22 minutes and 25, as we now watch them make their way through the very technical, dogged first sector before then venturing through the in-swinger at turn 10. There is Lau Kim Hu, who, of course, will be looking to improve on already his time. A driver hailing from Macau, and no question, a driver from Macau, no doubt, I'm sure, massive motorsport fans from that part of the world. One of the most famous Grand Prix in world motorsport takes place at that very circuit. Of course, we will witness Macau in all its grandeur in November as well, when, of course, this series takes its footsteps into that part of the world as well. As we now watch with 21 minutes and 45 left, still Han Le Chao in control, 1.258 time gap to P2 at the moment. But we're going to see those deltas come cascading down. Some movements further back. Can Chevey now in 9th place, ahead of Huang Kusheng as well, just in behind in the number 3 in P10. There's the 77 as well of Lau Kim Hu, who's down in 13th at the moment and making his way up through towards the line as well as they look to register their new laps. Moritz Berenberg now down in 4th, just behind Wang Hao, who's in 3rd at the moment in the number 21. It's a 120.781 though, the current fastest lap, and the last lap registered by Han Le Chao, incidentally a cool run, I think, with a 127.591, and he's not the only one setting cool down laps. Of course, getting very hot out there. The drivers have to manage the tyres through the course of the weekend. Of course, important to note that with the race, or the championship, shall I say, the SRO GT Cup ultimately coming to and well, certainly the season coming to an end at Macau later on in the season. The FIA confirming the dates of 2025's Macau Grand Prix, set for November 13th to the 16th this year, which of course was prior announced. Also features the SRO GT Cup season finale, the Greater Bay Area GT Cup. There is Moritz Berenberg in the Max Moore car, and of course driving that Porsche Cayman, and looking to make it 3 in his last 3. Maybe 4 in his last 4 as well, should he come out on top in race 2. Of course, remember, we've got 1 qualifying session taking you through the weekend with 2 races to also bring you that span over 30 minutes. No driver changes. The drivers, it's 1 driver per car, a sprint race right through from lights to flag. And of course, we will be running 2 rolling starts this weekend just to help the drivers who are going to be very new to this Pingtan circuit. Not many are known to have raced here in the past. Does harness motorsport generally in various championships, but it's not an often frequented, should we say, stop on the calendars for most championships. Of course, the China Endurance does, of course, race here, and also the Chinese F4 Championship. But many of the drivers here, as part of the SRO GT Cup, may be experiencing this maybe for the first time, or maybe only the 2nd or 3rd time. So the race director feeling the need to run 2 formation laps just to allow the drivers to become more and more familiar with it. There is Darrell Young from Team TRC in the 95 Mercedes. Of course, a little bit smaller on power output and also in shape in comparison to its bigger GT3 brother, but still a fantastic member of this grid, and Darrell Young has put it to great effect so far this weekend. 7th fastest at the moment, but no question we'll see some more from this man. And the first time he has also raced a GT4 car as well. Of course, prior to this, would have raced plenty in GT3. We mentioned those Bathurst victories back in 2011 and 2012 as well, not to mention the Greater Bay Area GT Cup GT3 back in 2023, where he was a GT3 winner. So in a smaller car this time, of course GT4, but certainly the racing won't be any less as ferocious. If anything, it tends to be more, because we tend to have drivers that hail in from the world of TCR as well as other championships. Darrell Young, though, going 4th fastest over the course of his last laps, and that relegates Moritz Berenberg down into 5th. Wang Hao 3rd fastest, with Han Liqiao still disputing up at the top, whilst he was 2nd in the test and also free practice through the course of the weekend. He's now raising the stakes a little bit more with a P1 lap time. Still running cool-down laps at the moment. His last lap was in the 1:42.202s. So no question, perhaps coming back to the pits for a rethink as well. Plenty of time, of course, to do that, to go out on a fresh set of tyres should need be before heading back out. And indeed, I'm absolutely spot on, just like magic. Han Liqiao in the pits in the Toyota Gazoo Racing China team, and of course the Toyota machine that he is, of course, driving this weekend, the Toyota GR Supra GT4 Evo 2 here in the SRO GT Cup. And thumbs up and a wave P1. But you're not quite done yet, Han Liqiao, but I'm sure you'll look to bring yet more fire to this qualifying session, I'm sure. But plenty more cars now crossing the line. I'm sure we'll see more improvements as they come through. Of course, if we look at Han Liqiao as a driver already through the course of this weekend, he has definitely been a strong contender, but we've got other drivers that, of course, have frequented lately. Han Liqiao, of course, taking victory back in race 2 last time out at Shanghai after finishing 4th, so has got form in this series. But there are other drivers to watch, of course, that also haven't done too badly and have been sitting in amongst the point side of things. Chuang Shishun as well could also be one to watch. But largely this a different circuit to what he would have experienced at Shanghai, China, because that has largely greater runoff to what we've got at the moment. Certainly not the close walls or the barriers that we have here. And Chuang Shishun, currently down in 6th fastest position at the moment, is the number 26. There's Darrell Young being wheeled back towards the garage for Team TRC in the Mercedes-AMG GT4. Really promising start for him in 4th at the moment. And we'll be looking to head out again, I'm sure, for the second half of qualifying, and looking to go faster again as we now watch as the remaining cars out on track look to reposition their fastest times. There's still a 1.2 second gap between P1 and P2 at the moment. That has not changed through the course of the initial stint of qualifying. Plenty of time for that to be corrected, that's for sure, as we watch the 99 of Wong Wai Hong coming around the circuit. Of course, coming here also in Mercedes-AMG GT4 machinery, and raced at the Macau Grand Prix and GT class over the last 2 years in 2023 and 2024 as well. So also has street circuit experience. And that's the beauty of Macau. It does offer that close quarter racing. And again, another street circuit, and Pingtan offering that little stepping stone on the calendar that can then get the drivers race ready for a trip around the close walls of Macau once again. And, will really help in terms of getting them ready for the mass overtaking they're going to need to make in order to maximize their performance throughout the course of the weekend. We do have some phenomenal drivers here taken to the circuit. 9 manufacturers, of course, line up here as well, with Lotus, Ginetta, BMW, Toyota, McLaren, Audi, Mercedes, Aston Martin and Porsche. And of course, with 21 drivers in total coming through this weekend, with 11 returning and 10 new that, of course, are racing, and 4 different nationalities, of course, represented as well, with China, Macau, Chinese Taipei and Germany as well, with Moritz Berenberg being the sole German racer, but certainly not doing them a disservice in 5th place at the moment and leading the AM class right now. Doing very well overall too, in terms of where he currently sits against our current P1 sitter. His last lap, his best lap, I should say, 1:22.329. as we take a look at Cao Zulung, who sits in the garage at the moment, the number 89 in second place right now. And looking to obviously marshal a good weekend here this time, driving the Toyota GR Supra GT4 Evo 2, and has taken part in TCR China over the last 2 years, racing in the China Taipei series. And we'll be looking to bring his absolute best here. A new driver coming into this weekend. As I said, we've got quite a few new drivers coming through, taking part in this weekend here at Pingtan. Now watches the number 11 of Can Che Wei. Just sits outside of the top 10. Will be looking to try and lift himself in the higher echelons of the timing screen. So the number 11 in P11 as it currently stands. Currently sat in P11 representing 778 Autosport, who have actually already incidentally had success here this weekend, with Lo Pak Yu taking victory in our first race of the day here at Pingtan, in the Pingtan Macau Challenge of 2025 in race 1. So already a good start here at the Pingtan circuit. He'll be able to levy his way up inside this top 10 as we wait to see any changes. Huang Kuxiang moving up into 9th is the number 3 Lotus. So a good return on his part. The Lotus Amira GT4. Beautiful looking car as well, with the very aggressive front end and a stunning rear spoiler. And despite it being GT4 machinery, like I said, packs a punch around these street circuits, and with them just being slightly smaller than the GT3 counterparts, allows them to be more nimble through the course of the circuit, whipping the tail out on the Amira as well. Huang Kuxiang not afraid to really unleash the full power in his car. Racing in TCR China will be used to moves like that, and that just allows the GT4 competitors to be slightly more aggressive than your typical GT3 drivers, just really having no fear in running door to door with each other. And that's exactly what they'll have to do here at Pingtan, as he now fires his way through turn 10 and heading in towards the latter point on this circuit, coming in towards the chicane here, turn 11, 12 and 13, and sticking the front left tyre straight to on the curb on the escape. Full power down in the Lotus Amira now, down towards turn 14. Let's see if this is yet another improvement for the number 3 that now sits in 9th place. The last lap was a 1:23.414 to move inside the top 10. Can he improve once again as he now storms towards the line? Doesn't look like it. He will remain in 9th place, but it's a 1:23.414, and or should I say a 1:23.980, so not an improvement on that previous best lap that he managed to marshal in. Here's the Audi though. We'll now witness the Audi R8 LMS GT4 Evo heading down through towards turn 1, and that's the number 26 Level Motorsports of Chuang Chi-shun. And while of course Audi have certainly lessened their footprint in the world of sports car racing as of late, we've still got a strong representation here in this Pingtan round of the SRO GT Cup, with Audi of course placing their future hopes in Formula 1. They're still largely supporting their GT customers here around the globe, so it's still not something that they're looking to betray. Audi still with a strong foothold in the realm in GT racing, as we watch the 55 head through the first sector. Kenny Chung Wai Kyung, also a shining light. And apparently we have a red flag coming out on the circuit at the moment, so that is just breaking now, folks. So the car's now stopping at the end of the pit lane. We have a short red flag as deemed by race control, just to clear up some debris that has found its way out onto the circuit. So the session will be brought to just a brief stop here, with the timer settling down at 10 minutes and 18. So no fears, folks, that timer will freeze and they will re-enter the circuit as soon as race control consider it green conditions, as the 75 makes its way around the circuit. But already Han Liqiao fastest. There is one of the curbs, I think, obviously just lifted away. You can just see the gap that's presented itself coming through the left-hander. That is coming through the chicane section before then entering, I think, heading in towards turn 10. So that's coming in towards turn 9. You can just see part of the curbing just relieved from the apex of the corner, which is the reason why the red flag has been called out. So the drivers have been asked to return to the pit lane and just get ready for further instructions. But of course, we are going to restart with 10 minutes and 18 to go. And many of them now started to position themselves towards the end of the pit straight. The number 55 still to come in. That is, of course, the K2C Motorsports car of Kenny Chung Wing Kyung as well, driving the Ginetta G55 GT4, racing in the China GT Championship GT4 class back in 2019, and also competing in China F4 last year as well. So he's cultivated quite a wide level of experience across several levels of motorsport, from single-seater into GT class machinery. Now here in GT4 in the SRO GT Cup. So he now makes his way down in towards the pit lane this time, being closely followed by a Mercedes as well. But the cars will now come to a brief standstill. There's the number 33, our current P1 sitter, Han Liqiao for Toyota Gazoo Racing China, after marshalling in a 120.781. A very good start to the day for Han Liqiao. The P2s in both test and practice have been put to bed for now, but of course, remember, we still have 10 minutes and 18 to go. We can't celebrate just yet, even though Han Liqiao was definitely feeling largely positive, and for good reason. He is 1.2 seconds plus in front at the moment, as the red flag still maintains across the circuit. Plenty of cars now looking to try and get themselves into position. You can just see there the Makita blow dryers just trying to keep the cool air inside the car. Very hot today here in Pingtan, with 32 degrees across the air at the moment, and that's without applying what's inside the car at the moment, with these certainly powerful engines in every single GT4 machine, really pushing the hot air inside the cockpits for every driver, and accompany that with the helmet and the race suit as well. It gets very warm, and in 30 minutes it can really provide the drivers with somewhat of a test. So it's not just for the car to have a break and maybe assess, maybe for a tyre change, also for the driver it's a chance to almost reboot and get ready to go again. But they won't have any chances of that heading into the race coming through later into the weekend. Of course, we are set for 2 races to bring you this weekend as well. But a wonderful commencement to the inaugural SRO GT Cup this season, making a hallmark debut appearance last time out at Shanghai, China. And certainly the drivers have not disappointed by any means. As we now take a look once again inside the pits, there is Li Jiting as well for a Team Pegasus, who come here largely massively stocked as well here this weekend, and he is a superstar in the world of China motorsport and sees fit to continue his motorsport career here in the SRO GT Cup, and we are delighted to have him as well, and really wish him all the best coming through the rest of the weekend. Of course, for Li Jiting at the moment, he's currently in our timing screen right now, looking for an improved lap. He sits in 14th at the moment, but plenty of time to register that improved run. He is, of course, a TCR China driver from 2023 and 2024. Or should I say, Li Jiting racing in the realms of Touring Car Sports Cup. Driver in 2024, I should say. Did race in touring cars, not quite TCR China, but Touring Car Sports Cup driver last year. Now moving out of the touring car machinery into the GT4 class, so could be a very, very vibrant contender coming through the course of the weekend. And he will be, of course, driving the Lotus Amira GT4, much like the fellow Team Pegasus driver Huang Kusheng, who also comes from that TCR China background over the last 2 years. As now the drivers await at the end of the pit lane, you can just see the 2 red lights on the top right-hand side. As soon as they flash green, we can get back underway. It's all in the hands of race control at the moment. The spectators there and ready to gather pictures of their favourite drivers about to head out onto the circuit. Always a fascinating view, this GT4 machinery. We've got plenty of personalities there in the pit lane as well. Of course, TV presenters representing here for the SRO GT Cup Championship, and great to see them all visiting this weekend. We now watch as the cars return to the circuit. So as quick as that, we're back under green flag conditions. 10 minutes to go here at Pingtan. So it's all or nothing now for the remaining laps, and you'd fathom there's approximately, I would say, maybe 7 laps that the drivers can post, but bear in mind they will obviously be running cool-down runs, so they might put 5 pace laps in. We'll have to wait and see as they make their way through the course right now. But as you can now see, the cars making their way through the first sector. The number 33 the current P1 sitter of Han Liqiao in the Toyota GR Supra GT4 Evo 2, coming in as the Greater Bay Area GT Cup winner, the reigning winner from last year, and looking to show the same form again this time around. You never know, he could do it back-to-back when we head there later on in the season. With his form currently standing really strong, coming in off the back of a victory at race 2 at Shanghai. He could yet go back-to-back here at Pingtan as well, maybe even make it 3 in his last 4, as we now watch as the other cars make their way around. The 89 also included, the Level Motorsports Cao Zulung, driving the Toyota GR Supra GT4 Evo 2, and of course taking part in the TCR China in 2023 and 2024 in the Taipei series. And now coming through the next left, now opening up the throttle as now we see more of them heading down the straight to commence their first fast run since the ending of the red flag. There is our current P1 sitter, now heading through turn 1. That is Han Liqiao, who has already blasted the practice times that we saw coming into the weekend. Of course, his fastest lap so far, a 1:20.781, that still currently holds 1.2 plus seconds a lap over Cao Zulung, who sits in second place at the moment ahead of Wang Hao, who is only 22 thousandths away from P2, very close between P3 and P2 at the moment. And also watch out for Daryl O'Young as well, who just sits on the cusp of the top 3 with his last lap, actually just outside by 55 thousandths of a second away from P3's Wang Hao so far. So now we watch as the cars fly through this left-hander at turn 10, and now in towards turn 11, turn 12 and turn 13. Of course, we do have the views of the azure waters, as well as the grand, should we say, grand skyscrapers that are watching and overlooking this street circuit here at the Pingtan Rui Lake International City Circuit, as they now look to negotiate their way around this 14-corner, 2.9-kilometer length layout. As they now burst down the straight, we're now going to see if we get any changes inside this top 10 already from the get-go. Already we have had some movement. Han Liqiao still the fastest man at the moment. The gap, though, has been brought down a little bit between Ps1 and Ps2, because Wang Hao has moved into second fastest ahead of Cao Zulung already. So we're now seeing some of the better times coming to the Furore. It's still beyond a second, the gap between Ps1 and 2 right now. There's Wang Hao at the moment. Now he'll look to go again, and I'm sure there'll be more in this lap potentially for the number 21, as the driver representing Toyota Guzhou Racing China heads through the first sector, a 3 times reigning China Endurance GT4 champion. So knows these cars like the back of his hand, and no question he is here and racing towards the top end of things here. Didn't have the best of runs back at Shanghai, but every chance to turn that around after a retirement in the first race at Shanghai, following up a P14. So still chasing his first points of the season, but being up at the top end and on the front row as well, disputing potentially with Han Liqiao for the pole spot. Could prove to be a very happy ending for qualifying for Wang Hao, should he pull this off. The number 21 now storming up towards the line. Will this be enough for first fastest? In an instant reply as he now crosses the line. It's only enough at the moment for a what looks to be a 1:21.893, which is still 1.1 off the top right now as we wait for more times to come in. Li Jiting into 13th fastest ahead of Lau Kim Hao, who is now down in 14th place, with Wong Chek 2 as well in 15th. There's Daryl O'Young, who is now 4th fastest ahead of Moritz Berenberg. It's Daryl O'Young, who was, of course, born in Canada, but still, of course, of the nationality of course, Hong Kong. But as he now makes his way through the course, currently sat inside the top 4 and looking to feather his way inside this top 3 if possible. His last lap was, of course, a 1:24.066, still looking to beat his best time of a 1:22.116. 77,000 still off our P3 time set by Cao Zulung. Got 4 minutes and 50 to go. We're inside the final 5. And Han Liqiao still in control and in charge at the moment. There's the 95, though, of Daryl O'Young flying through the S-bends through turns 11 and turns 12 and 13. You'll get a nice tow from the cars in front. Doesn't want to get too disrupted, though, by them at the same time as the furious Mercedes-AMG GT4 with its mighty grunt coming out of turn 14 now. Let's see where Darrell O'Young will go. He'll go second fastest. Brilliant lap there. And finally, the second gap has been broken. Darrell O'Young, of course, a winner of various GT3 races and notorious ones at that. Winner at Bathurst in the 12-hour back in 2011 and 2012. Winner in the Greater Bay Area GT Cup GT3 in 2023 as a winner. And could yet be returning as a GT4 driver as well this time. Got a little bit heavy over the curbs though, which will of course cost him quite a bit of time, but he is still second fastest. And now the gap only stands at 0.6 plus of a second, just over 6¼ tenths away from Han Liqiao. Wang Hao now down into third, ahead of Cao Zulung at the moment. Moritz Berenberg still in fifth at the moment. But there's plenty more opportunities for other drivers across the board to now dispute Han Liqiao's fastest time. At 1:20.781 is still the one to beat. But I'm sure Darrell O'Young's going to give it a really good go here in the 95 Mercedes. He now peels through the very fast left and right, coming out of turn 13 now in towards turn 14. Let's see how close he can get. Heavy on the brakes. No question, he was full commitment in the first sector. We thought perhaps he took the curbs a little bit rough and ready, but I must say he's still persevering on this lap. There is still time to find, and Darrell O'Young may yet find enough as he makes his way towards the line. Let's wait and see. Can he bring that time gap down lower? Last lap, 1:21.725, approximately 0.3 off his best time so far. And that's still over 0.6 off our top time at the moment. There's the number 21 of Wang Hao, who's also looking for a personal improvement. His last lap, a 1:21.566. Or his best time was a 1:21.566. Bet last time was a 1:24, which of course will not trouble the sharp end. But he still stands just over 1.5 tenths away from Darrell O'Young in second place. But will ultimately need to find something just under 0.8 of a second to catch Han Liqiao. So 3 of our top drivers in this championship now starting to come together towards the sharp end of this timing tower. And now coming out of the very fast chicane at turn 13, the 21 of Wang Hao is going to look to try and levy himself more and more towards the front end as he now looks to pivot his Toyota around the next left-hander representing the Toyota Gazoo Racing Team China. As he now looks to cross the line, can he pepper himself past Darrell O'Young? Is it close enough to register himself an improvement here so far? Still third fastest by the looks of it at this stage. As he now comes across the line, the last lap was indeed a 1:21.867, which will still remain over 1.5 tenths away from Darrell O'Young at the moment. So no changes there. It's still Han Liqiao who's holding all the cards at the top of the screen at the moment. 1:20, and I think Han Liqiao, when he was celebrating briefly during that halfway stint, he knew it was going to be a very difficult lap to beat. As now we see Yang Meng Chiao now into 7th place behind Chuang Chi-shun, who is now up into 6th, with Huang Kusheng now down into 8th place. Liu Jianzi as well, of course, racing here this time as well. And Liu Jianzi was incidentally the fastest driver in the Friday test session. He now sits in 9th fastest position. Of course, set at 1:22.035. Now, we've well and truly dwarfed that time here at this point with the 1:20s being out on circuit, but good to see him entering his name inside the top 10. And incidentally, that P9 lap time that he managed to throw in, that 1:23.256, that is not his best time of the weekend. So he's actually 1.2 seconds off his best free practice time, as we now watch yet again the cars come across the line. Still no changes to the front end of the order as the 21 of Wang Hao comes across. Of course, this will be his last chance saloon now to set a flying lap, because we've got only 15 seconds now to take us through to the checkered flag. And the 35 of Liu Jianzi, who sits in P9 at the moment in the Mercedes, now looking to lift himself aloft as well after a difficult session so far. Despite being 9th fastest, still has 1.2, as I said, to find on his free practice time. As race control deem the time at 0, it's now the checkered flag, as now Liu Jianzi looks to try and find a real big improvement to improve, but it looks like 9th fastest is where he is going to stay. And his best time of 1:23.256 will not trouble the leading runners, that's for sure. But we'll wait and see whether there can be some last-minute heroics from other cars across the grid. It looks like it's for not so far, as we watch the number 75 here in this stint make his way down through towards the next left. This is Team Pegasus' Wu Pei in the Lotus Amira GT4, now cruising up towards the line himself, and unable to pounce his way towards the top end. He's currently 18th fastest in our timing tower, as we now watch as more and more cars come across the line. Darrell Young still second fastest. Wang Hao coming across as well in the number 21. Of course, his last lap as he crosses the line, only a 1:22.169, still slower than his fastest lap. But it's going to be Han Liqiao who's going to be fastest here come the end of the session for Toyota Gazoo Racing China, who've got a car in Ps1 and Ps3 ahead of the race coming up on Sunday this weekend. The two races we've got coming up this weekend, of course, the first one though starting earlier on in the day. But a magnificent start for him, and he heads straight to the garage, and no doubt you will be reassessing and looking as to what he can improve. But obviously off the back of that lap, an astonishing performance to go 6/10 clear plus at the very top. There was over 6 1/4 tenths faster than Darrell Young in second position, as he now, after removing the helmet, looks to cool himself down here at this stage after a very warm session. 32 degrees, remember, of course, in this grid, and with the winds out there as well, providing very little cooling. He'll be looking to restore himself, I'd imagine, get the fluids in as well. But a magnificent visit for Han Liqiao for Toyota Gazoo Racing China in the Toyota GR Supra GT4 Evo 2 that has now managed to achieve a first fastest time, and the 21st or the 21 car belonging to the sister Toyota Gazoo Racing China. We can now head down though to Feline, who's with Han Liqiao.
恭喜你，韩立潮拿到了杆位。那么对自己今天的表现满意吗？
其实从车队的这个角度上来讲，当然我作为这个官方车手，对自己的表现依然还觉得有更进步的一个空间。我觉得这种精神也是 GR 的精神嘛，就是永远去挑战极限的这么一个过程。所以今天对自己的状态打个90分吧，
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. I just asked him how does he feel about his performance today, and he said he's still not satisfied. He still feel he can improve, but he's happy to get P1. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Feline. I tell you what, if there's more improvements on top of 6/10 of a second plus, then I tell you what, I worry for the rest of the grid. Well done, Han Liqiao, and we'll look forward to seeing what more he can muster as we make our way through the weekend. And of course, with 2 races to come on the Sunday, what a performance. Let's take you through the classification. Han Liqiao for Toyota Gazoo Racing China is pole position, with second place going to Darrell Young, Wang Hao in third, with Cao Zulung in fourth as well. Moritz Berenberg in the AM class in fifth, with Chang Shi-jun in 6th place too, with Hang Meng Chiao in 7th place, Huang Kusheng in 8th, Lu Jianzi in 9th spot, with Sai Chang Ta now rounding out the top 10. But we'll see how the drivers contest now. Of course, that is your top 10 heading through to the race coming up later on in the weekend. It's going to be a stellar weekend. To round off the bottom 5 as well, we got Liang Ian Beng, as well as Kan Che-wei, Li Jiting as well further back. And looking at some of the back runners, Wu Pei, Miguel Li, Wong Wai Hong, Kenny Chung, Wing Tiung, as well as Ip Un Hang. But folks, that is it for our Saturday. We're going to be looking ahead to Sunday for 2 races of action on Sunday. But from all of us here at Pingtan, it's goodbye. They're always tricky. We got there though. Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for your help on that, Dave. That was great, mate. Thank you.